Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to a late night edition, a quick hitter edition of our Operational Reality with Rocco Million Live. I'm Rocco Million. This is my group, Nonpartisans for Progress, and this is my show, our Operational Reality. I'm going to look at some of the things that I'm seeing in the mainstream media, just today. Looking through for a few hours, looking at Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN. And today I want to focus specifically on Trump's tweets that are demonizing, immigration and the caravan. It's very important that we look at this and see just how the mainstream is butchering this whole issue on both sides. Why can we not get any real democratic opposition to this right-wing philosophy and ideology? Because Trump is saying, we're being invaded. I mean, quote unquote, we're being invaded. And, if we don't do something, these other people, these others are going to take all of our stuff. And even the Democrats, like Claire McCaskill, I watched her on CNN, and she was enthusiastically on board with Trump. Wholeheartedly, she said, I'm with Trump wholeheartedly, protecting our nation from being, quote unquote, run over, overrun. So that's our Democratic response. I saw another Democrat say, well, we are the greatest nation in the world, so we can't really blame the migrants for wanting to come here, and get the American dream. But the problem is, there's people in Detroit that want that American dream too. Chicago's the new Jim Crow North. And this is from a Democrat. And so I want to talk about this a little bit because we got a lot to unpack there. This guy's saying we have the greatest nation in the world, and that's why these people are moving here. Like it's some type of a move of convenience, and they're coming for a better life in America. No, they're coming because we destroyed their homes, their nations with our for-profit imperialism and right-wing proxy wars all throughout the Central America and South America. That's why I got this meme up here. I'm going to blow it up. I couldn't get the better one, but, you could look and see this is where, look at the red part. That's pretty much all of South America, Central America. We've completely destabilized the whole region and destroyed these people's homes, toppled democratically elected governments, and in the power vacuum, these narco states were developed also because of America's imperialism and for-profit drug war and for-profit justice ways. So in the power vacuum, after our right-wing proxies destabilized all of Central America and all of South America, and the power vacuum is filled by these big narco traffickers. All right, so now you have these narco states like El Salvador and different Nicaragua, even Mexico, and different. They're basically narco states, and this is all of America's doing. So they have to leave. They have no choice. They have to go thousands of miles across very rugged and dangerous terrain with sometimes very young children, even pregnant. And people die, and they know this, and they still do it. They don't want to. People don't want to just leave their homes. Americans just completely don't think about issues. People don't just take their kids and go thousands of miles across a desert in 3 different nations, for the hell of it, for a better life on a whim. No, they do it when they have no other option. And America caused this problem, and we have to face that. And saying things like, oh, we're the greatest nation in the world, and they got to just, no wonder they want to come. But, people in Detroit want the American dream too. So right there, that's class antagonism. That is making us, poor people in America, be against other poor people, other victims of our imperialism, They want us to be against them. So, so they'll tell us, oh, well, if they come up, they're coming up to take your jobs. They're coming up to lower your standard of living, you know. And so in this way, they get people to be racist and to be have these nationalistic tendencies. It's all by design. This is controlled opposition. This is from a Democrat, you know. Yeah, no, people aren't coming here for the American dream. They're coming here because America destabilized their country with right-wing proxy wars. That's it. And then you see this magical thinking, you know. They don't want to look at the facts. Right in his own statement, he's saying, oh, well, see, America's the best in the world. You know, and of course, everyone wants to come here for that American dream. But then he says, but wait a minute, people in Detroit, they can't get that American dream. It's the new Jim Crow North. That's what they said. The Democrats said this, you know. So right now he's admitting there is no American dream. Even Americans can't get that American dream. All right. So this is magical thinking to avoid reality. You know, our nation, our cities like Detroit and Chicago, they look like war zones. All right. They call Chicago Chirac. I mean, more people get killed in Chicago than they do in Iraq. That's why they call it that. I don't know about that, but a lot of people get killed there. Let's not get, tangled up in the details. So by their own admission, though, Americans can't even get ahead. We got record private debt. Our communities are literally crumbling in need of work. Whole communities are drinking poisoned water. Bridges are collapsing. Our infrastructure is crumbling, so sewer systems are crumbling. Every time it rains, that poisons our rivers with a process called leaching, where all these fertilizers from capitalist farms and things like that leach into our rivers, and all these chemicals from Trump now lifted the ban on fly ash, so now they can put fly ash in our rivers again. Which is basically mercury. It's a very toxic byproduct of coal power. So, it doesn't look good. We have to look at things and call them out for what they really are in the mainstream media. We can't let them get away with diverting attention from the root of these issues. We can't let them do that. The fact of the matter is no one ever talks about what we did down there. We teamed up with the Contras in Nicaragua, all right, and we actually trafficked drugs to America with the Contras, Ollie North and Freeway Rick Ross. And there was congressional hearings about this, and they admitted this stuff. So it's not, this is well-documented stuff. All right. We also teamed up with right-wingers like Pinochet in Chile, and this today is the Republican, still today is the Republicans' dream of what they want to do in America. They want to privatize our retirements and pensions the same way that Chile did. The right-wing dictator of Pinochet, that we teamed up with this guy. And we also teamed up with right-wing paramilitaries in Colombia. This is I could go on and on and on, and anybody that even puts 10 minutes into looking at this will see this is completely our doing. We caused that caravan, and now we, by accepting this systemic abuse and evil in our own name, we accepted it for generations, and now this is the result. We got these mass migrations, these humanitarian crisis. Refugee crisis. Are we going to seriously allow our government to now terrorize these people again? They just sent a shitload of army active duty personnel to intercept these families of desperate people who are weak and tired and disenfranchised, and we're sending our army to intercept them. Can you imagine if that was a caravan of white Christians coming from, we'll say, a Muslim country, Syria? Somehow they ended up in South America and they were coming up. Can you imagine the difference in the reaction? That there would be this caravan of white oppressed Christians from the Middle East trying to make their way to freedom. You know, I mean, people, I don't know. I'm going to put up this other meme for everyone to see, because this is basically what our foreign policy exactly is. And so let me read this. All we want to do is invade your country, drone strike your women and children, steal your natural resources, and install vassal kings who will be useful to our imperial ambitions, and then call you a terrorist if you resist. All right, this is what we do. We radicalize, people. We not only fund, train, give logistical support and weapons to these right-wing proxy groups, these terrorist groups, but all of this violence radicalizes everybody in that whole area, destabilizes the whole area. And in the power vacuum, these narco traffickers, they're the most powerful people down there because of the drug laws. Making drugs illegal creates this huge black market where you get narco states. You get these people in charge. So it's completely American created at every level. And we want to terrorize them again at our own border. We need to let them in, and we need to do the humanitarian thing. Provide for them. If we start putting aid to fix their country, start actually facilitating true democracy for the people. But we won't do that, because that's the whole reason we destabilized them to begin with, was because they had democratically elected governments. They were trying to work for their own public purpose. See, that's what we do as Americans. We go around and we team up with right-wing proxies against leftist movements in the public purpose worldwide, not just South America and Central America. Hell, let's anywhere you go in the globe. Look at Afghanistan. We teamed up with the Taliban, a right-wing proxy organization, against a left-wing movement in Russia. All right, we've armed the Taliban. We gave them funding. We gave them weapons and logistical support. We brought the Taliban to the White House. We called them freedom fighters. Osama bin Laden, we called him a freedom fighter. This isn't new. This is well documented. We're now teamed up with ISIS in Afghanistan and Syria in a proxy war against Syria, because they have a constitution and they give their people equality under the law. So we have a right-wing proxy war against a leftist movement in the public purpose again in Syria, because Syria wants to nationalize their oil interests. They want to work for their own public purpose, and we don't like that. So we want to topple them. And so we team up with right-wing proxies like ISIS now. And we call them the moderate. We call them the moderate opposition. But in reality, as Tulsi Gabbard showed us, the Democratic, representative went down there herself, took a camera crew, took pictures, and showed the Syrian people pictures of so-called white helmets. These are American-backed so-called moderate rebels, referees, self-described referees, but in reality, they're ISIS. And when she showed these pictures of these white helmets to them, they didn't even know the term white helmet, but they did recognize the people in the picture as being ISIS and as being foreign fighters, American-backed foreign fighters who hate Syrian people because the Syrian people had a constitution and equality under the law. So these right-wing Sharia law nutcases that we back go in there and they terrorize the Syrian people. And people need to start to understand this is what's going on. We do it all over. We did it in Libya too, in Iraq. These were secular nations. In Vietnam, Cambodia with Pol Pot. Iran used to be a democratic Mecca back in the 50s. And literally, women they could drive. They weren't subjected to Sharia law in Iran. And because they wanted to nationalize their oil and work for their own public purpose, we got nervous, and Britain got nervous because they had BP down there. And Iran wanted to kick BP out and nationalize their oil interests. So America funded and a right-wing coup, and it placed a right-wing religious fanatic, the Shah, in power. And now these Iran live under Sharia law, and we try to say that they're the biggest terrorist state, funding all these terrorists all over the world. No, that's America. That's America's title. America is the biggest terrorist state in the world. We're the one that funds right-wing terrorist groups all over the world, as I've been describing. We're the one that destabilizes whole regions of the world simply because they have different economic interests than us. We're the ones causing these refugee crises. We topple democratic nations. We hate the public purpose. We hate constitutional rights. We hate our own constitution. So we export this for-profit way of life. This is for-profit imperialism, and we do it with the right-wing proxies. So, any questions? Any comments? I'm going to talk about this some more. There are various countries fighting to put their own pipeline through Syria. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Russia wants to do it too. But the reality is that isn't our call. That's Syria. But we have been in Syria from at least 2008, and that's fact, according to WikiLeaks. We have been in Syria in a proxy covert war without a declaration from Congress, without the public's knowledge. We have been funding, arming, training, giving logistical support to right-wing terrorists like ISIS to go in and not only terrorize the free Syrian people, but try to destabilize the Assad government, the leftist movement. And that is unacceptable. We all have to understand that we're not trying to spread democracy. America don't drop bombs for humanitarian reasons. It's about money and control. They want, don't ignore the facts. Don't let the mainstream divert your attention. And anyone want to talk about the caravan? Yeah, most of the people in the caravan are, Christians. They're just white. Yeah, that's right. They're mostly Roman Catholic, just like me. But yeah, they're not white, so they don't fall into the same category. What I'm talking about is caustic Christians or something like that. White, white Christians from a Muslim nation, and maybe the Caucasus Mountains, or I don't know, somewhere. But no, it's just interesting to think about the different reactions and how we would picture it. My buddy Paul and me were talking about, the plight of people of color in our nation. And I said, man, if I was black, I'd be the most militaristic, I'd be the most violent and probably hateful person that there ever was. I don't understand how black people can be so civil and protest peacefully by kneeling down and doing things like that. And he said, yeah, really, it's crazy. White people are the most aggressive. If I was treated like that, I would be flipping out. I'd be hurting people. I wouldn't be able to be civil about it. And Paul was telling me, so if you think about it from that standpoint and everything that people of color had to go through, in reality, this means that people of color must be the most generous, warm-hearted, caring individuals to be able to take and endure all the discrimination and hatred and pointless hatred and scapegoating that the black community has, and still be able to believe in our nation and believe in white people, and kneel down in peaceful protest and not be violent. That's why you got to make sure you listen when people of color are talking about systemic abuse that they face. You got to make sure you listen when foreigners are talking about systemic abuse they face due to imperialism, because if you only listen to our side of it, you're only hearing the winner side, and history is wrote by the victor, and we only say what we want to say, and everybody knows this. Let's talk. Anybody got anything negative to say? Worried about the caravan? Anyone disagree with my analysis? And, you know, they want us to believe, though, that, you know, the migrants that are coming up are going to drive everybody's wages down and this and that. And in reality, it isn't the migrants, the illegal workers driving wages down. It's the fact that our government targets unemployment. And we force millions of people to be unemployed and poor. So they're already so desperate that they'll work for starvation wages under horrible conditions. That's without any illegals here. And plus, you know, this slave labor in prison. So that's where the class war is. And don't let them turn our woes and our pain into scapegoating these innocent victims of our imperialism coming up at the border. You know, it reminds me of Nazi Germany, and it's, you know, maybe some people use this comparison wrong, or, you know, but this is an actual good comparison. You know, after World War I, you know, Hitler rose to power when, you know, the Germany was inflicted with austerity from war reparations from France and other nations, and so they didn't have enough stuff for their own people. They were forced to do. Other nations took over their productive capacity, and they had austerity inflicted on the people and pain inflicted on the people. People couldn't get what they needed to survive comfortably, and so when you have that kind of hard conditions to live, that harsh reality to live in, you know, scapegoating becomes easy. And, you know, and so that's why it was so easy for them to scapegoat the Jewish people and, you know, anybody that they didn't like, because anything to not focus on your pain, you know, and, you know, think that there's a way that we could solve it simply by attacking the enemy. But sometimes things, you know, they're not as easy as just attacking and killing the enemy. Sometimes you have to work. You have to correct the root issues in your society. You want people to have good jobs. You want society to be good. You got to have jobs for everyone available. You got to have opportunity. You don't want people coming, mass migrations and humanitarian crisis. You can't be inflicting for-profit imperialism. You can't be being a bully going around the world, you know, toppling democratic nations with right-wing proxy wars. You can't have it both ways. All right. Now the damage is done. Now this caravan is our responsibility. These people, they're our responsibility. We created their situation. They are our victims because we've collectively accepted the systemic abuse and evil that is for-profit imperialism and right-wing proxy wars. So now the chickens come home to roost. We have to take care of our obligation, our responsibility. This is the type of stuff that makes us lose our humanity. It makes us indifferent to pointless human suffering and pain. People stop looking at them like humans. All right? Try to think of that caravan as if Jesus was in it, as if the second coming of Jesus was in that caravan. I guarantee you wouldn't be able to send armed freaking active duty troops to intercept them if you thought Jesus Christ was in that group. All right? You know, I'm not saying we have to just let them through without any checks or any regulations or anything. I'm not saying that. But I am saying when you go and destabilize whole regions of the world, yes, you got to deal with your responsibility. They are your responsibility. You cannot let a humanitarian crisis happen. You can't let these people starve or be persecuted or be, you know, whatever. They're our responsibility, guys. I hope everyone sees that. Asylum seekers are bound to create friction between the so-called democracy and global economic opportunity. Must we allow Trump time to analyze and All right, I'll put that one up. Asylum seekers are bound to create friction between a so-called democracy and global economic opportunity. We must allow Trump time to analyze and forecast how he can become exceedingly wealthy on human suffering and tragedy, as Dick Cheney and George W. Bush have. Yeah, but that kind of sounds a little bit partisan. I don't know who put that, and that's true, absolutely true. But the same is true for Obama and Clinton. Obama deported more than Bush. Obama took Bush's 2 for-profit wars to 7. Obama is the only president to kill American citizens without a trial or any due process. He's the only president to kill American children. He killed the propagandist for ISIS. That was an American, though. And then he killed his 2 14-year-old nephews, without a trial. That the only president. That's horrible. He also prosecuted more whistleblowers than any other president in history combined. Yet he won a Nobel Peace Prize, or a Nobel Prize, for being the most transparent president. Yet he was the exact opposite. Like I said, he actually prosecuted the most whistleblowers in history, more than every other president combined. And people, they miss that. He was horrible. He inflicted the drug war too. He privatized our public space too. He helped with this problem in Central America and South America too. He did nothing to fix it. People get confused. Like I said, they want to think that, the classical critique would be that the illegal immigrants would drive your wages down. But in reality, we already have a buffer stock of unemployed and desperate people willing to work for starvation wages. We already target 5% unemployment. So there's already millions of people that are always willing to work for starvation wages. So that's not really a big deal. We can have a federal job guarantee and completely absorb anybody that wants to come and give them work, because we have tons of work that needs done right now. We have needs that need met, and we have millions of people that are unemployed. So that means we have untapped productive capacity. Our government can spend dollars into existence and increase production, increase our productive capacity. We can increase economic output, rebuilding our crumbling communities across America in green, sustainable ways to meet everybody's base needs in the public sector for free. Because if government's paying teachers to educate, and government's paying doctors to administer top-notch public health care, there's absolutely no reason to charge the end user, because the government doesn't need profit or income of any kind. The federal government, is the currency issuer. It has the power to mint and tax per Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. So even if, and that's the other thing I want to talk about what Trump did today. I was saying they were demonizing public health care, and they were demonizing using the socialism scare tactic to really do it, And I come to this conclusion because people automatically assume their taxes must go up to pay for any increase in living conditions. All right. So this thinking results in, people having a natural aversion to all public purpose spending initiatives, because they automatically assume at a, base level, they think that taxes need to go up to pay for nice things. So when they hear that, we want to give everyone public health care, they automatically think that means their taxes are going to go up. So they have a natural aversion to any public and all public purpose spending initiatives. And this is how they brainwash us from birth. But the reality is taxes can't fund federal spending. Taxes can't fund the federal government. It's impossible. You can't even collect a tax until government first spends the dollars into existence. So it's the other way around. Federal spending funds taxpayers, who then pay tax or buy bonds. It can never be vice versa at the federal level. It's just impossible. Public debt for society and a higher standard of living is the entire point of government and dollars to begin with. So we can have a better standard of living, and that doesn't mean you have to pay more. If you have resources idle and you have people unemployed, then you don't have to worry about inflation. So you don't have to add no taxes. In other words, we only need to tax people when we have inflationary pressures. So, for instance, public health care. It was just shown Bernie's single-payer health care, Medicare for All bill would cost $2 trillion less than doing nothing, the status quo, over 10 years. Now, so because it would actually cost less, there would be no inflationary pressure to cover everybody with top-notch public health care. There would actually be a deflationary pressure because it would cost $2 trillion less than doing nothing. So this would not only mean we don't have to raise taxes to get top-notch public health care for everyone, this would mean we would actually have to lower taxes to make our economy run at full efficiency. So if we're going to meet everybody's need for top-notch public health care, it's going to actually lower the cost of health care. And it's just simple logic why you do away with the middleman, you do away with the for-profit aspect, and the costs go down. You know, when you make essential public goods like healthcare private and for-profit, then healthcare is not the goal. Profit is the goal. So they give you the least amount of healthcare for the most amount of profit. So of course that's going to drastically, have prices spiking upwards and not related to the actual cost of production. Not related to, it's not a market price. It's not a fair price because they're basically monopolists charging whatever they want, whatever the market will bear. So it would actually cost us less to have single payer healthcare, Bernie Sanders bill. It would cost us $2 trillion less, actually even probably a lot less than that. According to Joe Firestone, he says probably around 10 trillion if you add in all of the unseen costs. But we won't go into all that. We'll stick with just the base figure of 2 trillion. That's good enough because that means we wouldn't, not only would we not have to raise taxes to get single payer health care, we would have to lower taxes. So the mainstream narrative here about socialism and demonizing socialism because people think their taxes got to go up, it's easy to destroy with the simple logic of our reality. The fact is, taxes don't have to go up to fund spending ever. Taxes do not fund spending. So as long as we got the real resources to meet the demand for any program, we can always afford that program without raising taxes or making cuts, and it'll be non-inflationary. I'll say it again. As long as we have the real resources to meet the demand for any program, then we can always afford that program without making cuts or raising taxes, and it'll be non-inflationary. So like I said, if we have the doctors, the medicine, the hospitals to meet the demand for top-notch public health care for every single person, then we can always afford that program without raising taxes or making cuts. And it'll be non-inflationary spending. And in reality, we'd have to lower taxes. And the other thing about socialism you have to understand is our social contract is in essence the Constitution. This is in essence socialism. All right. It's socially owned government for the general welfare, the public purpose. We are guaranteed government for, of, and by the people. So that is socially owned government for the public purpose. This is in essence socialism. Government is the currency issuer. So how the currency issuer spends, taxes, and regulates, it determines what kind of economy and society we have. It determines everything. It determines how we utilize all the real resources of our entire nation for the public purpose. So really, that's in reality, we are far closer to central planning of communist China than we are of this mythical free market that the libertarians and right-wingers think of. The reality is government is in charge of everything as the currency issuer, and how it issues currency, how it spends taxes and regulates determines everything. Every single job that pays dollars is always ultimately dependent on government to keep spending dollars to maintain that paid employment. So we are all dependent on government always. Government forced us to stop living off the land by imposing taxation on us. That makes us all willing to sell our goods and labor for dollars. That's called unemployment. That's how government gets the people. That's how it stops us from living off the land and start working for the general welfare with paid employment. Government spends and creates paid employment. And that's how government provisions the general welfare with things like a military, infrastructure, legal systems, healthcare, education. So that's how it satisfies our public purpose in our Constitution. Because again, the Constitution mandates that it do that. If the Constitution mandates that our government mint and tax to provide for the general welfare and common defense to ensure domestic tranquility, well, that could only mean then you need a military for the common defense. You need legal systems for the common defense. You need top-notch education and healthcare for the general welfare to ensure domestic tranquility, because you need educated populations. You need healthy populations, happy populations to produce our needs of tomorrow and ensure domestic tranquility as it's mandated by our social contract. Anything else, when we privatize essential public goods and services like education and healthcare, now they're incapable of meeting everybody's needs because everyone's not rich. In fact, the majority of Americans are working poor. They have no savings, no disposable income. So for-profit markets are utterly incapable of meeting their needs. So for-profit markets are utterly incapable of satisfying our public purpose. So they have no business putting human necessities to life on a for-profit market. That's the job of the currency issuing government, who's mandated to maintain and provide for the general welfare and common defense to ensure domestic tranquility. It's the government's job to ensure civil society, in other words. That's it. Now people get confused with that unemployment thing. Once government spends more dollars than it taxes once government spends more dollars into existence than it's taxing back out, that's called a government deficit. That means it's leaving net savable dollars with us in the private sector, in the non-government sector. And so that now we're all able to do business amongst ourselves because we have dollars in the non-government. So now there's many reasons why I may or may not hire somebody, but that original unemployment was always taxation. Taxation's what drives the dollar. It guarantees we need dollars, which that is unemployment. When we need dollars, that's unemployment. We're willing to sell our goods and labor to get these dollars. So the taxation creates the unemployment, and only federal spending satisfies that condition with paid employment. All right, and that's the reality. We're always dependent on government. So don't let the mainstream fool you. And if government provides top-notch health care and education for everyone, it's not going to make us all vulnerable and dependent on government. It's not going to drag our quality of living down. It's going to raise our standard of living. All right? It's going to hurt their huge windfall profits, and that's what they don't like. But guess what? They're irrelevant. When we unite in solidarity with the ruling class wants is irrelevant. All right? This is about us. All right, let's see what else. What do we got? Any other comments, questions? Let's see. Here we go. Asylum seekers are bound to create. Oh, I already saw that one. We got thousands of people addicted to crack on purpose. Absolutely. Well, I don't know. I mean, it isn't on purpose. I would never say that. It's always a byproduct of profit. Our government wants to team up with right-wing proxies and destabilize whole regions of the world, with for-profit imperialism. And so a lot of times these are off the books. It's covert. It's a proxy war. It's without congressional approval. The public doesn't know about it. So they need funding. They can't get funding through the normal channels. And so they have to, team up with these right-wing groups, and they have to allow them to traffic drugs and help them traffic drugs. They also turn their heads and allow tons of human rights violations, So to raise money for their proxy war, for our proxy war. And so what that does is when we did this in South America, in Nicaragua with the Sandinista, when we teamed up with the right-wing Contras to topple the Sandinista government, the democratically elected government, that's what we did. We teamed up with them. We allowed them to traffic all this cocaine in. That actually introduced crack. That's when the start of the crack epidemic happened. And what was our response? We flooded our streets with cocaine, caused this huge crack and cocaine epidemic because of our for-profit imperialism and right-wing proxy war. And the response was to inflict even more draconian drug laws and to specifically try to target the blacks, and the most vulnerable with these horrible sentencing disparities guidelines. If you got caught selling a gram of crack cocaine, you would get 100-to-1 sentence compared to a yuppie uptown getting caught with a gram of powder cocaine. All right, and that was specifically to target the blacks, and it did. It destroyed a whole generation of blacks. It destroyed whole communities. And it was horrible. And then we did the same thing. Now we're teamed up with the right-wing proxies in Afghanistan, the Karzai government. When we teamed up with these people, we kicked out our old proxy, the Taliban. The Taliban had, this crazy religious rule where they didn't allow people to grow opium. And so they had rules against that. And they actually the Taliban would even pay farmers to grow food instead of opium. But America, when we went back in after September 11th, we kicked the Taliban out and we teamed up with Karzai and the warlords. And guess what? These warlords are actually the drug traffickers too. Karzai's brother is the biggest heroin trafficker in the whole region. And so, we quadrupled the heroin production in Afghanistan. And we flooded our streets in America with all of this really cheap, really good heroin. And what do we do as a result? Because this is all fact. We inflict more draconian drug law here in America. Now doctors are afraid to even do their job. People like me, I'm a disabled veteran. I've had multiple spinal medicine that I need. I can't even get the medicine that I need. Doctors are afraid to give me pain pills because they say they're afraid to go to jail. It's not that it's a medical reason. I can't give you these drugs. I don't feel comfortable. It's not, you don't need them. There's nothing that would say you need them. This isn't a medical decision. The doctor tells me they're literally afraid for their life. The DEA terrorizes them, goes into their office, demands records, talks down to them, threatens to put them in jail for 20 years and does. I've seen just in Newcastle alone, 4 different doctors that got over 10-year sentences for prescribing pain pills to people that needed them. And so now doctors won't prescribe them. And guess what? Now I'm forced to go onto the black market and where there's really cheap, really good heroin. And so without no medical oversight, without no government regulations, this ends up turning into overdose epidemic. People start dying left and right because this for-profit market is unregulated and it's profit-driven solely. There's no government regulations, no medical oversight. This is for a doctor to not do their job and give me the medicines that I need because they're afraid of going to jail because of draconian drug laws. And that is to violate their Hippocratic oath, to first do no harm. And so they're forcing me to go onto the black market to get life-saving medication. And it is life-saving. If I don't have this, I will hang it up. You cannot go through life in complete pain. I'm in pain as it is all day with the drugs that I need. If I don't have what I need, I can't function. And there's absolutely no reason. I'm a grown man. I should be able to make my own mind up to say what I need and what I don't need. The doctor should be there only in an advise and assist role. Now if I am shown to be problematic in the community and, maybe driving intoxicated, stealing, doing crazy stuff, now there's extra government intervention needed. And so this is where we will also need top-notch public health care, not for-profit health care, to help people. These are the root issues of this stuff. And so anyway, the laws here, what my point is, are for-profit imperialism and right-wing proxy wars. They end up flooding our streets with drugs, and then we inflict even more draconian drug laws, and we all become fodder for-profit justice, for-profit prisons, policing for profit, civil asset forfeiture. The list goes on and on and on. And it's just insidious.